Start. MTC. Light, 2022, P7 No Exercise 1. You'll remember that Odysseus asked his crew to tie him to the mast of his sailing ship to avoid the lure of the sirens. But if you think about it, he could simply have put beeswax in his ears like he commanded the rest of his crew to do and saved himself a lot of grief. Odysseus wasn't a glutton for punishment. The sirens could be killed only if whoever heard them could live to tell the story afterward. Odysseus vanquished the sirens by narrating his near-death voyage after the fact. The slaying was in the telling. The Odysseus myth highlights a key feature of behavior change: recounting our experiences gives us mastery over them. Whether in the context of psychotherapy, talking to an Alcoholics Anonymous (AA) sponsor, confessing to a priest, confiding in a friend, or writing in a journal, our honest disclosure brings our behavior into relief, allowing us in some cases to see it for the first time. This is especially true for behaviors that involve a level of automaticity outside of conscious awareness. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. Light, 2022, P7 No Exercise 2. It is important to hold on to a certain self-image, then it also makes sense to burnish it. We do this actively by filtering out negative information. Another option is to simply avoid taking actions that have at least some chance of rebounding badly on us. If I cross the road to avoid passing by a beggar, I won't have to reveal to myself that I lack generosity. A would-be migrant who stays home can always maintain the fiction that he would have succeeded had he gone. It takes an ability to dream, or a substantial dose of overconfidence, to overcome this tendency to persist with the status quo. This is perhaps why migrants, at least those not pushed out by desperation, tend to be not the richest or the most educated, but those who have some special drive, which is why we find so many successful entrepreneurs among them. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. Light, 2022, P7 No Exercise 3. The idea that education should increase intellectual independence is a very narrow view of learning. It ignores the fact that knowledge depends on others. To fix cars, a mechanic needs to know who can provide parts and who can deliver them, how to find out which cars have been recalled, and how to learn about the latest design innovations. Cars these days depend on technology that comes from all around the world, so a decent car mechanic will have access to knowledge distributed throughout the community of knowledge within the automobile industry. Learning, therefore, isn't just about developing new knowledge and skills. It's also about learning to collaborate with others, recognizing what knowledge we have to offer and what gaps we must rely on others to help us fill. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. Light, 2022, P7 No Exercise 4. Euclid, who lived in Alexandria between 350 and 275 BC, authored the Elements, the most influential geometry book of ancient times. 350275 Alexandria, the Elements. Ptolemy, the king of Egypt at that time, asked for his advice on an easy way to read the book. "There is no royal road to mathematics," replied Euclid. The same is true of elementary mathematics. However, since it deals with the bottom of the tower, the number of layers it establishes is smaller. There are no long chains of arguments as in higher mathematics. This is one of the reasons it is appropriate for children. In another sense, though, it is harder. Some of its layers are hidden and difficult to discern, as if they were built underwater and thus difficult to view. Noticing them requires perceptive observation. They are easy to miss and skip. Elementary school mathematics is not sophisticated, but it contains wisdom. It is not complex, but it is profound. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. Light, 2022, P7 No Exercise 5. Fungi make up one of life's kingdoms, as broad and busy a category as animals or plants. Microscopic yeasts are fungi, as are the sprawling networks of honey fungi, or armillaria, which are among the largest organisms in the world. Armillaria. The current record holder, in Oregon, weighs hundreds of tons, spills across 10 square kilometers, and is somewhere between 2,000 and 8,000 years old. 1028. There are probably many larger, older specimens that remain undiscovered. Many of the most dramatic events on Earth have been, and continue to be, a result of fungal activity. Plants only made it out of the water around 500 million years ago because of their collaboration with fungi, which served as their root systems for tens of million years until plants could evolve their own. 5. Today, more than 90% of plants depend on mycorrhizal fungi, which can link trees in shared networks, sometimes referred to as the Wood Wide Web. 90%. This ancient association gave rise to all recognizable life on land, the future of which depends on the continued ability of plants and fungi to form healthy relationships. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. Light, 2022, P7 No Exercise 6. Telling ourselves everything other people could possibly use against us doesn't numb us to it. It only makes us believe we are worth those words and that those accusations would be valid. Besides, there are so many variables to whether or not someone will grace you with their approval and praise that it's nearly impossible to blanket over everyone and everything completely and universally. And that's what's required if validation is to be sought, certainty, the kind we can't find in ourselves. But people's opinions, especially negative ones, largely stem from what they know they don't have and can't do. You eventually have to stop basing your self-worth on the insecurities of others and start basing it on your own genuine convictions, no matter how long it takes for you to find them. I always knew that my belief that I wasn't worth it wasn't the reason I played my own antagonist. My fear of being hurt by other people was. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. Light, 2022, P7 No Exercise 7. When we behave toward others with care and concern, sensitivity and tact, honesty and integrity, generosity and grace, forbearance and forgiveness, we start to become a different person. And such is the nature of reciprocity, itself one of the deeply engraved instincts that is the basis of morality, that we begin to change the way others relate to us, not always, to be sure, but often. Slowly but surely, a new atmosphere begins to be felt, at least in the more intimate environments in which we function. Bad behavior can easily become contagious, but so can good behavior, and it usually wins out in the long run. We feel uplifted by people who care about other people. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. Light, 2022, P7 No Exercise 8. When you are learning from experience and moving boldly outside your comfort zone, emotions are likely to be the biggest derailer of your personal learning. There will be times when your body tenses, your head pounds, your mouth goes dry, your hands sweat, your breathing accelerates, and you feel flushed with adrenaline, all signs that a disruptive emotion is at work. Other times you may feel down, blah, disconnected, despondent, or just not into it as you drag yourself through the day. Though less dramatic, these reactions can also be signs of a disruptive emotion as well. When this happens, it can be very hard to stay focused on learning from your experiments. However, these kinds of emotions are also informative and worth investigating. Emotions aren't just problems to be dealt with or suppressed. They also signal that there is something to be learned here. Understanding why you are feeling the way you are feeling can be an important stimulus for making change if you can prepare yourself to read the signs. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. Light, 2022, P7 No Exercise 9-10. A friend of mine, David, used to be the house magician at a restaurant in Massachusetts. David, Massachusetts. Every night he passed around the tables, coins walked through his fingers, reappeared exactly where they shouldn't, disappeared again, divided in two, vanished into nothing. One evening, Two customers returned to the restaurant shortly after leaving and pulled David aside, looking troubled. David. When they left the restaurant, they said, the sky had appeared shockingly blue and the clouds large and vivid. Had he put something in their drinks? As the weeks went by, it continued to happen. Customers returned to say the traffic had seemed louder than it was before, the street lights brighter, the patterns on the sidewalk more fascinating, the rain more refreshing. The magic tricks were changing the way people experienced the world. David explained to me why he thought this happened. David. Our perceptions work in large part by expectation. It takes less cognitive effort to make sense of the world using preconceived images updated with a small amount of new sensory information than to constantly form entirely new perceptions from scratch. It is our preconceptions that create the blind spots in which magicians do their work. By attrition, coin tricks loosen the grip of our expectations about the way hands and coins work. Eventually, they loosen the grip of our expectations on our perceptions more generally. On leaving the restaurant, the sky looked different because the diners saw the sky as it was there and then, rather than as they expected it to be. Tricked out of our expectations, we fall back on our senses. What's astonishing is the difference between what we expect to find and what we find when we actually look. MTC. Good job.